Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week, and this is going to be the astro weather for the week of December 14th through the 21st, 2025. I hope you guys are well. I'm excited to be back. Just a few couple love notes on the channel. Obviously, if you like this content, if you want to see more of it, please do subscribe. Click that bell button below so you can get more of my videos. I'm here on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Don't forget to drop me a comment. Let me know your rising sign and what you are pumped up for, because over the next 6 weeks, we are going to see Mars moving through the sign of Capricorn. So it is going to be an amazing transit. That's going to be the main transit we're going to be talking about today. But I do read all of your guys' comments, so let me know what you are planning to do with that transit. And join me here on Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be having live astrology readings on the channel, talking all things new moon and Sagittarius, and I'll be answering your questions live. So if you have a timing question, a relationship question, or questioning things about like natal aspects in your chart, come and hang out. I would love to read for you guys. It's always a good time. All right, well, this week is a bit of a conundrum. There is a lot of like very strange energy this week. I really feel like the energy starts off, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Things feel a little emotional. We're gonna see that there are some Neptune squares that are kind of shaping up this week. And then as we kind of move through that, we are cutting through the fog, the confusion, maybe feeling a little bit more inspired, maybe feeling a little bit more like we're resting and kind of daydreaming and creating and feeling sentimental. And then boom, the last 4 days of the week, we are gonna find that there is so much clarity. So with Mars entering Capricorn, I feel like this is going to be a major game changer. I've been really waiting for this transit for the last couple of months because there's some really cool aspects. And it's like an almost perfect transit. We're gonna see pretty smooth sailing while Mars is moving through that sign. We will also see this week that there is going to be a new moon in Sagittarius, which is very kind of hopeful and optimistic, but there are a few pitfalls with the squares to Saturn and Neptune, asking us, do we have the ability to dream big and overcome illusions and hidden blockages? So if you guys haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. I do all of the kind of aspects and I talk about the predictions and also give you guys insight for the 12 rising signs. Now, we are going to see that solstice is also going to be here at the end of the week. So we will see the sun entering into the sign of Capricorn. So we are going to bid farewell to Sag season, and we're going to be moving into Capricorn season. So if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the first days of winter, and really powerful, potent kind of reset point. I feel like a lot of people look at this as when the new year is actually really beginning. So it's a great time for setting intentions and getting ready to welcome back the light. So this week, the featured transit that we're going to be talking all about is the Mars in Capricorn transit. So it will be happening this week. You'll see this if you're watching on Sunday, tomorrow, so December 15th. Mars moves into Capricorn, and it's going to stay there until January 23rd, 2026. Now, I am ecstatic for this. I feel like it is going to be such a beautiful transit. I love to see Mars in Capricorn because obviously this is its sign of exaltation. And for 6 weeks straight, this is going to give us so much more energy, so much more motivation, and the ability to be more so disciplined. This is also kind of like legacy building fire when you put Mars in this sign. We will be going through all 12 signs and talking about how this is going to be impacting you guys, so stay tuned for that. But if you happen to be an Aries or a Scorpio or a Capricorn rising, you guys are going to feel this the deepest because either your chart ruler Mars is on the move or Mars is moving into your sign Capricorn. But honestly, for everybody, this is a beautiful transit. It makes me feel very I keep saying it weird. This makes me feel very optimistic and enthusiastic about the new year because we're going to be seeing a whole stellium of planets that are going to be moving through Capricorn, similar to what we've seen with Sagittarius over this last month, minus all of those pesky squares that we have seen to the nodes and also Saturn. And it's going to be a beautiful ride. So you know, with Saturn being the dispositor of Capricorn and Saturn now direct, this basically means that it's not just all hustle, right? Capricorn, Saturn-based sign, cardinal Earth, known for the long game, for you know, long-term career outlook, maturity, vision, anything revolving around showing up, being a boss, getting things done. It's the reason why we call Capricorn the GOAT, right? But Saturn here being the ruler, or I guess like the host of this Mars transit, means that the hustle has a little bit of soul. There is a sense of being tapped into our vision or being tapped into our intuition, and also recognizing and realizing that we have to kind of just let things flow naturally. And when there is a sense of like rest and kind of having the ability to, I think, really trust the process of what we're working on and kind of just being in the zone, we get a lot of stuff done. Now, Mars is also the dispositor in connection and association with Chiron, because obviously Chiron is in Aries, so it is a Martian sign. And this means that really as Mars goes through Capricorn for the next 6 weeks or so, like every step of the ladder is really about kind of applying stitches to an old identity wound. And what we will also see is now Mars is actually coming into superior angle. So the only kind of harsh aspect we're going to see with Mars throughout this transit, an inconjunct or a quincunx happen in Sagittarius. Once it moves to Capricorn, it's going to oppose Jupiter in Cancer. So that's going to have us, I think, kind of going to extremes, but we can manage it. And then there will be a square that will happen where Mars will be coming into a square with Chiron and Aries. So that's the only kind of ouch, but more or less I see this as like a period where we can take responsibility and we can show up for healing ourselves. We can recognize where we have to have better boundaries, where we need to kind of stand up for ourselves and maybe be willing to say no, or, you know, not for me, or this isn't good enough, or this isn't good, you know, for my health. And we can work through some kind of old personal or identity wounds. Now, we're also going to see that there is going to be some major peak moments. And you guys have maybe heard me kind of talk about this a little bit in previous videos, but we will see a very rare and unusual triple conjunction that's going to be happening between Venus, Mars, and the Sun in Capricorn. And so it's not unusual to see the Sun and Venus and sometimes Mars every 2 years or so moving through the same sign. What is unusual is that we are going to see both of them pull in front of the Sun in cazimi. So that means that there is going to be a rebirth moment for both Venus, goddess of love, obviously beauty, harmony, relationships, art, and Mars, you know, god of war and anything that deals with like passion and conflict and blood and guts and kind of honor. So Mars and Venus are star-crossed lovers, so to see them come together in this superior conjunction and pull in front of the Sun is like so magical. So that's a really great transit that we're going to be talking about a little bit today. That will be taking place round about January 6th through the 9th, 2026. So right in the first week of the year, we're going to see this very powerful kind of union, really igniting the Capricorn area of your chart. So pull out your chart. This is where it pays to know your personal astrology. That is the area where you're going to be seeing a lot of action and buildup, and possibly even a kind of renewal when it comes to, I think, making sacrifices because of Saturn's connection, you know, working hard for the things that we love, and also kind of laying down some long-term, long-lasting plans. So for the next 6 weeks or so, I really feel like this is going to be a huge turning point. Obviously, you know, that cazimi I think is going to be the highlight. And it feels like literal rebirth energy. And it's going to really be, I think, kind of tied to some of the themes of the new year of setting intentions and getting rock solid in a certain area of our life. But for a lot of people, it means that, you know, they're going to be prioritizing the themes of that house. So it may not be career oriented, but you might actually be treating that area of your chart as, this is my job, you know, and not only is it my job, but I have the energy, the stamina, and also the love to go and do some of this stuff and get it done. Now, in terms of the actual transits that I think are going to be most prominent, I'm going to take you guys through those right now and give you the dates for that. It's going to run between obviously the 15th of December and about the 23rd of January. And we're going to start with looking at the ingress. So we're going to look at Mars going into Capricorn. And one thing that you guys need to kind of think about is like, man, the energy the last week has been pretty gnarly, huh? I remember telling you guys last week being like, you know, we're going to start to see Venus square the nose. There's going to be some major turning points in relationships and whether or not relationships need growth. We are also seeing Mars coming out of the square with Saturn. So that was definitely some kind of difficult challenges, limitations, issues with authority, some speed bumps, and now we are finishing off the week here, if you're watching on Sunday the 14th, with Mars coming into a square with Neptune. So it's been kind of hanging around Friday, Saturday, Sunday today. And to me, it feels at 29 degrees like nails on a chalkboard, but it also feels like there is this energy where we are questioning our moves. You know, Mars is linear, it wants to go forward, especially in a fire sign, and it wants to do daring things, it wants to do exciting things, it wants to go places and experience stuff. But with the square to Neptune, there has been this sense of, ooh, am I slowing down? You know, am I losing motivation and power? Am I kind of letting something go? Or am I getting kind of lost in a daydream? So really, you know, Saturday into Sunday this morning, there is still this energy of needing to take it slow and maybe needing to be more soulful in our actions and moving in ways that are going to be more intuitive and less action-oriented, because this is a closing square to Neptune, and also it's at 29 degrees. So there's something critical that's about to change. Be mindful of anything involving water, okay? Because Neptune can be about water. So if you live in parts of the world where there's extreme weather, we could see issues with flooding, we could see issues with airports and airplanes connecting to heavy rain and storms and things like that. And there can also be a sense of getting lost and confused and not knowing the bigger picture, and honestly feeling kind of like we have like brain fog. So I don't know if you guys have been feeling that, but that energy is going to shift. Let's not do anything kind of like permanent or dramatic. Let's wait until Mars gets into Capricorn, where it can really start to get some stuff done. Now, the first transit will be Mars entering Capricorn. So we're coming out of kind of this like dazed and confused energy. And then when we get to the 15th, it's going to enter 0 degrees of Capricorn. So it's immediately going to start picking up the energy of Saturn. And we're also going to see a nice little sextile from the moon in Scorpio to Mars. And Mars is the dispositor. So you guys are going to notice on Monday a pretty significant vibe shift, especially considering the fact that, you know, that Scorpio moon is really highlighting any changes that are going on with Mars. We see a sextile to Mars and also a square to Pluto. So there could definitely be lots of shifts regarding, you know, people's budgeting, their expenses, stuff involving debt, news involving banks and savings, or anything involving kind of changes with the market. Obviously, we are also coming into a dark moon phase this week, so it's not unusual to kind of see everything kind of bottom out, and then we'll see it kind of grow after we get through the new moon in Sagittarius. And I'm pretty optimistic with some of the transits we're going to see. I think with Mars and Venus and stuff, I think the markets are going to be looking pretty bright. I think the first 10 days of January, it's going to be a real highlight when we see that conjunction. Anyway, that'll be the first transit. And then what we're going to be looking at next would be January 29th. So like I said, this is a pretty smooth sailing transit. Most of the aspects Mars is going to be making, because Saturn is direct, because it's going to aspect Saturn, because it's going to conjunct Venus, because it's going to conjunct Mars, is beautiful. So we don't really see too many challenging aspects, but the ones that we do have are going to be pretty big. So let's go to the 29th, when we start to see the Mars coming into a sextile with the North Node. So this will be at around 11 degrees. Let's move that forward. There we go. And it looks like it'll be in the afternoon hours. Mars sextile the North Node at 11, Mars trine the South Node at 11. 11s do represent energies that are going on with the collective. So it could be stuff that's going on online, things that are going on with groups and people that are meeting, people who are coming together and socializing, and it's kind of like an Aquarius energy. So it can also be about the future. And when we see a sextile to the North Node, the action that we're taking in the Capricorn area of our chart is really enhancing the direction of where we're meant to kind of grow and evolve, right? The North Node in Pisces. Intuitive, dreamy, receptive, empathic, you know, capable of releasing, letting go, forgiveness, and also soul healing. And then we see trines to the South Node in Virgo, and really this is going to be, I think, where destiny can really open, like there could be doors of destiny that are opening. And it'll open without force, as long as we're applying ourselves and staying committed to the path and the vision, because Saturn is ruling this. And I think that trine to the South Node in Virgo means that we can actually drop old habits pretty easily. We can release things. And so I would say to those of you guys who are wanting to really embrace going into the new year, and you're like, yes, I want to have these New Year's resolutions. This is a great time, not only because it's after the new moon, but also we're going to see an exalted moon in Taurus, trining Mars and Venus in Capricorn. I mean, and also the moon's going to trine the south node. So if you're like, this year I want to eat better, this year I want to find a new job, this year I'm going to be budgeting my finances better, or I'm going to be saving money or whatever. Like, I think I would start setting my New Year's intentions probably somewhere around either the 29th, or I would be doing it right around the first week of January when we start having some of these triple conjunctions. But I do think that I would really focus on leaning into, you know, kind of navigating some stuff that's kind of happening when it comes to work or health or money things in a more intuitive fashion. Now, we're not going to see much happening until we get to the 6th through the 9th. But this is like that golden period that I was telling you guys about that is like so magical. So look at this. So on the 6th, we're going to have the sun at 16 degrees, we're going to have Venus at 17 degrees, and we're going to have Mars at 17 degrees. So they're all within about a degree of each other. And it looks like the exact, I looked at this earlier, the exact conjunction would not be happening until closer to like 17 or 18. But let's just say this, on January 9th, on January 6th through the 9th, if you have anything from about 15 to 19 degrees of Capricorn, sun, moon, rising, personal planet, like pay attention, because there is going to be like this star-studded kind of event where all of these planets are going to be conjunct. But the one that I'm most interested in is going to be when it all Kazimis with the sun. So we got to get the sun and Mars ahead of, Venus and Mars ahead of the sun. So we're looking at that around the 6th, and that's going to continue to move to 17 degrees, which is a pretty kind of like sexy romantic degree. That's a Leo degree. And then we're going to see it move to about 18 degrees. So for several days, we're going to see this Kazimi that's going to keep moving, and Mars and Venus are right ahead of the sun. Wow. I think that all in all, you know, looking at this transit, a lot of us are going to feel like we're willing to do the work for something that we love. That's how I see it. It also means that maybe our will, you know, obviously that's the sun, our heart, Venus, and also our identity is all kind of like fusing. And that maybe a new identity is born, or there is a new commitment to that area of our chart. And relationships and money will have like this reset that's going to be happening permanently. Now, if I remember correctly, I think the last time that we saw a Venus conjunct the sun, it was like right around the time that we were having the Venus retrograde in Capricorn that I think was happening at the end of 2021. Now, when we had that Venus retrograde, we had the Kazimi, but it was obviously in its retrograde motion. This time around, it's direct. So you might be kind of wanting to think about, okay, well, what was the storyline of what was going on with that retrograde in 2021? Obviously, Venus retrograde, a lot of people were realizing and recognizing that we weren't exactly going back to work, or that our schedules weren't necessarily going to be normal, Capricorn things, and that there was going to be some change in the way that we were working. And so I think one of the themes that I've kind of noticed, at least with this one, is I've heard a lot of people telling me that they're now moving from being in a hybrid kind of workspace, that they're going back into the office full time. And a lot of people are being called back in, being said, you know, hey, we're going to be here. We're going to kind of be getting back to the normal schedule of doing things. And so that might be one manifestation, just kind of generally. Obviously, Capricorn rules a ton of stuff. It deals with governments. It deals with top-down structures. It can deal with big companies, big businesses, CEOs, leaders, managers, generals also. And with Mars kind of being in the mix, I do feel like there is going to be like a lot of energy revolving around people being quite passionate about what governments are doing, or what military kind of mobilizations are taking place, or money that's going to be, you know, kind of given to the big military kind of like machine, especially with Saturn being direct and Saturn conjunct Neptune. So I think we're going to see a lot of emphasis and focus on money that is kind of moving around, money that's not only going to be kept within our, like, you know, our government or our militaries, depending on where you live, but where this is being sent to global groups, because Saturn is kind of the dispositor of this. And obviously Saturn is conjunct Neptune. So we're going to be hearing about big government business decisions about, well, we'll give money to this country, or we're helping money with that country, or we're giving money for military aid to that country. So it's going to be pretty significant. Obviously, if you guys haven't heard the news, as it stands right now, kind of in mid-December, there is yet another peace negotiation deal that's on the table for Ukraine and Russia. And what's happening right now is supposedly, you know, Zelensky has been given until basically Christmas to make a decision as to whether or not he is going to accept the peace with kind of the peace deal. And it's supposedly if he does not accept the peace deal, then President Trump's going to start talking about pulling money out of NATO, which I think is a brilliant thing. Well, I'll keep my politics out of it other than that. But if you guys have seen the NATO chart, it's just like, it's a shit show. So I think that this is interesting that we're going to see this kind of happening right around the time that there is going to be some big major announcement regarding, you know, where soldiers are going and how much money is being given. And if you just see how much money, you know, the United States is contributing to NATO and the kind of influence that they have, but not necessarily keeping the peace, I'm curious to see what that manifests as. Does it manifest as money being pulled out of that, not supporting it, and that money going back into the United States? Is it going to be some big news regarding government contracts? Obviously, we're hearing about, I think it was like Palantir, if I remember correctly, just recently they got a big one. But there's going to be more discussions revolving around something going on with government, military, and also like private or secret security or things involving anything kind of connected to Pisces. So it could be, we could be hearing news about, you know, secret bases. We could be hearing news about secret camps. We could be hearing news about secret military mobilizations and things that are going to involve water or being by water because of that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. But in our own lives, I feel like this is going to be a moment where there is some sense of beauty and pride in like taking action and either preserving something older or, you know, really focusing on things that are going to be a little bit more kind of traditional. And also building some kind of long-lasting legacy. And so somehow it kind of ties into obviously where we were 4 years ago. So I'm curious to see what happens. Now, I think that this also means that we can have relationships and money that can reset more permanently. So watch for that, because that Kazemi moment is like an energy that's being reborn. And then on the 10th, as if like that wasn't an extra dose of sweetness, on the 10th, then we start to see Mars coming in opposition to Jupiter, which honestly is like crazy because it's also going to be at a 10, which is, it's going to be at a 20 is what it looks like. Let's go back. 20 or 19. It's like right on the cusp. No, it's going to be at 20. So that's Scorpio degree. And this, I think, is going to be maybe some big news revolving around laws, because Jupiter is laws regarding housing, regarding real estate, maybe even funding, news in regards to interest rates, mortgages. And whenever you have an opposition to Jupiter, it just kind of makes everything bigger. And this is going to be heavily influenced by the moon. So the day that this is happening, we're going to see the moon in Libra squaring Jupiter. So there's big emotions about changes on the home, how that's impacting relationships and partnerships. And then we see Mars in opposition to Jupiter. And like this will make the Martian energy really swing. And what I'm so curious about is like what happens, because we've got two planets in exaltation. We've got Jupiter in Cancer, where it's expansive and nurturing and loving and motherly, and it's all about security and also remembering our roots and like where we come from. And then we've got this like Martian energy in Capricorn, which honestly is like a drill sergeant in the best way. And then we see this square from the moon. Now Venus is being influenced by the moon, and Venus is still conjunct the sun and Mars. So I feel like this is just going to be a very big day. I think that with this opposition, it's unusual and it's rare because we see Mars in Capricorn every 2 years, right? But we only see Jupiter in Cancer every 12. So we're seeing this combination that's happening where a 12-year and a 2-year cycle is syncing up. On top of that, we're also seeing that this continuation of the Kazemi energy where Mars and Venus are still moving side by side, although some would argue it's combust, is just almost like we're getting pulled in two opposite directions, and it's going to feel like we're trying to do too much at once. So really with Jupiter retrograde, I feel like that's the only downside, is that perhaps maybe the opposition between Mars and Jupiter is kind of like there's this theme of like ambition versus home or our emotions. And there can be this kind of feeling of like overreaching. And we can also see that there can be ego flare-ups because the sun is involved. And I think that this is a time period where we have to kind of scale back a little bit and kind of readjust and focus on climbing, but we don't have to try to have too many irons in the fire. Speaking from somebody who has like, I have Capricorn, like Jupiter oppositions with the same signs, and it's always just one extreme or the other. So I'm curious to see how this manifests in my life this year. And then we're going to have the Ouch transit, which is going to be on the 13th. This is, in my opinion, really the only kind of like difficult transit that we're going to see involving Mars and Capricorn. And it's going to be difficult because we're going to see that it's also going to still be in opposition to Jupiter. So it's still picking up that energy of like, is it work or is it home? And then boom, Mars comes into a square with Chiron. And that is an ouch because now Chiron is direct. Now positive, I want to make like lemonade here. All this Capricorn energy that's going to be squaring Chiron at the same time, you know, Venus, so that's going to be talking about, you know, love and security and tradition, kind of like paving the way for feeling more confident and secure. The Sun, so that might mean that, you know, we're taking accountability, we're taking responsibility, we're making changes at work. Mars, which is going to be the downer. That Mars square Chiron, I think, is just maybe old shame coming up around being too much. And I've seen this from a lot of people recently. I've heard from a lot of people who have natal planets in Aries and they're experiencing the Chiron transits to it. I've also seen as like some planets were going through Libra and they were opposing Chiron and Aries in this last year. People were telling me like, yeah, I feel like I'm too much. Or maybe they feel like I'm not enough. And so I think that the friction that comes up is really going to help us heal. I also feel like this is really about doing the hard inner work. And then look at this new moon that we're going to have in Capricorn, which this is a very early look. I wasn't trying to look at the new moon, but like, hi, there is a freaking goat party in the sky. Look at this. Certainly Capricorns, I feel like, are just going to be like stoked with all of the transits that are kind of happening the first couple weeks of the year because there's a lot of Capricorn energy here. Now, what you'll see first is Mars and Mercury will conjunct in Capricorn. So that had not happened yet. Totally different transit. And then hours later, we're going to have a new moon that's going to be in Capricorn, but it's going to be within a 2-degree conjunction of Mars. So it's a very Martian kind of, you know, Capricorn new moon. Moon doesn't do well there. It's a little bit debilitated, but all that sextile to Saturn, Saturn direct, all that trine to Uranus. I'm loving that Capricorn new moon. But because it's a new moon that's conjunct Mars, it basically means that this is one of the most potent days for planting seeds in 2026, especially if you want to make more money because of the trines to Uranus, especially if you want to change your job, you want to launch a business, you want to go from being an employee to being self-made and being a CEO. You're going to have these beautiful sextiles to Saturn, which means if you can dream it and believe it, you can make it happen. And it's going to oppose Jupiter, which means I think we're going to see some rags to riches tales in 2026. I think we're going to see some people who are going to go, I went from being down here to launching my business and it blew up and everything changed and it was my dream and I'm helping other people and now I can get my family, you know, out of living in an apartment and into a place where they can feel safe and kind of secure. That's that opposition to Jupiter. So we're going to see big glow up stories that are going to be happening because of this new moon. And I also kind of feel like round about the same time, you know, I think that this is going to be a time that if we're committing to some of our dreams, especially with Saturn and Neptune in the final moments of Pisces, we commit to it here under this new moon and we find that things that we end up initiating may stick for years. All right, so then check this out. Then we get to the 20th of January, and on the 20th, we're going to see Mars is then sextiling Saturn, and it's connected to Saturn at a 27, so it's about communication, signing contracts, agreements. And we are also going to see it trine Uranus. Now that's aspects kind of baked into the January 18th new moon, but these are when it's more exact. Uranus is retrograde, okay, so I think that efforts will get rewarded and there could be sudden upgrades, so sudden upgrades to money, payment systems. I think there's going to be big announcements about new payments that are coming from the government or new ways of dealing with transaction or new ways that they're looking at or focusing on finding assets and things that can back the dollar. So I always tell people, like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a financial advisor, but I can tell you that this is going to light the Bitcoin chart up like a firecracker. So if you've looked at the Bitcoin chart, then I'll probably do a video on it just for fun. But if you go and you look at the Bitcoin chart, you have all these like late degrees in Capricorn. And that's right where Mars and Venus is going to be. It's also going to light up RFK's chart. And I think a lot of it's going to be, especially I think this is happening in his 6th house, revolving around getting the job done, you know, or whatever it is that he's trying to do to kind of get things in order to make some really big shifts in regards to health and systems and services. And that's obviously, you know, his whole bag with his transits, if you look at his chart. Might be fun to kind of do a video on that. So I'll talk about more of that in the future, but just know that this is when you're going to see a sudden upgrade. There's almost like this gold star energy and almost like a lightning bolt of opportunities for now wealth to be able to flow through. Interesting that on the same day, we're going to see that Venus is conjunct Pluto and the Sun in Aquarius. And all of that is tying into what's going on with Uranus. So we're going to be seeing that there's about to be a major shift, I think, in the monetary system. I think right after that new moon, and just kind of seeing where there's going to be some potential major transformations going on with the future of money. We're going to start to kind of hear the beginning of this, I think, in January. Then on the 23rd, we will see Mars come into a sextile with Neptune at 29 degrees, which basically more or less is the final degree of any sign. So there is this critical kind of energy aspect whenever you're dealing with 29 degrees. It does feel like a tipping point. Some of us are already feeling this now in December because Neptune is back there currently. And Saturn's getting ready to hit it again. And so you're going to see 29, 29, 29, 27 planets in the late degrees. And this is why astrologers talk so explicitly about what was going to happen in February, kind of like through April of 2026, because all these planets are shifting from what's been predominantly kind of feminine, earth and water, to Pluto's going to be in Aquarius now, Saturn and Neptune are going to be in Aries, we're going to see Uranus going to Gemini, we're going to see Jupiter in the summer going to Leo. It's a fire horse year, so next year is going to be like boom, boom, boom. Things are just going to start rapidly developing very quickly. Technology shifts, I think, in human consciousness and awareness. We're also going to see some bigger changes. I think that's going to be happening when it comes to consequences, for individuals, consequences for crime. Certainly, Saturn, Neptune could be the theme. I'll talk about that more when we get to like the New Year's kind of stuff, but things are going to start shifting very dramatically. And I almost feel like with Mars sextile Neptune, there is this realization that's like, oh, things are fracturing and stuff is kind of falling away. And what we thought was real, maybe not is real. And like there is some kind of bigger shift that's kind of happening like with the world. The sun will come into conjunction with Pluto, and that in its own right is a big transit, which could represent some major kind of change revolving around, a star or a celebrity that dies, or some kind of sex scandal out in the world, or a politician getting busted for something, or some kind of, major financial crime that's kind of coming up. And I do think there is going to be a lot of that we're going to start hearing about in the beginning of the year. And then that sextile basically means that it's like the final kind of like, okay, I'm giving you the orders to go and like wrap up what you need to wrap up. And now we are going to be focusing on quick moving kind of electric type of vibes as soon as Mars goes into Aquarius, which no doubt is going to be quite the transit, because we will continue to see Mars move through, an Aquarius stellium. This is like giving me, what was it? I think it was 2021, if I remember correctly, right, guys? I think it was the end of 2020. We saw the Saturn, Saturn and Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius at 0 degrees. And then the beginning of that year, we saw a ton of planets, I think, that went through Aquarius, and it reminds me of that. So there's a huge shift coming with Mars going into Aquarius, not just because it's, the sign, it's because Pluto is there, the sun is there. We're going to see Mars and Pluto conjunct in Aquarius. It's going to be a doozy. So we'll save that for next time. Just know that that's going to be where the rocket and rolling is really going to start happening at the end of January, going into February. And I hope you guys can make the most of this really quite beautiful Mars and Capricorn transit. Let's do the week at a glance, and let's get into what's going to be happening for the week of December 14th through the 24th. So if you guys are watching this on Sunday, happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. I hope you guys are doing well and you're excited for the week ahead. This is going to be the daily breakdown. So we're going to kick off on the 14th. And as you guys know, I talked about this a little bit last week. I was like, look, you got over the Mars square kind of Saturn hump where there was frustration, agitation, and delays. And now Mars is coming into a square with Neptune today. I think that is one of the bigger transits that you're going to be feeling yesterday, today, tomorrow. Crazy weather. Be really careful when you're driving. We can see a lot of people who are under the influence, or we hear more about drunk driving, or people who are falling asleep at the wheel with Mars square Neptune. Anything involving being under the influence at all and trying to kind of get around is something we want to watch out for, because Mars can be about kind of putting the pedal to the metal. Neptune can be about where our perception is kind of altered. So be careful out there over, like the next day or two while this is kind of going on. Throughout the day, we're going to see the moon moving through Libra. Okay, so let me move it to the early morning on the 14th. And we wake up first thing in the morning with the moon in Libra, which is putting an emphasis on partnerships and relationships and harmony. Obviously, Venus is in Sagittarius, and this is kind of sextiling Venus, the sun, and Mars. So there can be a lot of getting up, spending time with people kind of vibes. I think a lot of it's going to be about what we're learning in relationships, where we're traveling in relationships, talking about travel and kind of, accommodations with others. The only downside is that the moon is going to come into a pretty gnarly opposition and square first thing in the morning. So there will definitely be some crabby people up this morning. Watch for that. The moon in Libra is relational, and the opposition to Chiron and Aries brings up personal wounding. And this is also squaring Jupiter in Cancer. So there can be a lot of like relational disputes over too much growth, too many things, too much stuff happening at home or with the family. And I would say if you can let this kind of cool off as it gets later into the morning into midday, we're not going to see this triggered as much. But definitely if you have any planets, I would say 21 to like 24 degrees of the cardinal signs, you're going to be maybe feeling a little moody, or you're kind of feeling like things are coming at you from different angles this morning. And we will also see that with that moon focusing on Jupiter and, kind of Jupiter being the apex, it can also make people like very emotional and very sensitive. Now, we'll see that between the sextile of Neptune and Uranus, the moon is also the focal point of a yod. So it's saying like in order to kind of clear out these hidden blockages or limitations that we're feeling, we have to have some shakeups in our values and our resources. And also that can also be some of the things that's triggering the conversations in our relationships. It's like getting stuff out in the open. We will see that the moon will come into a sextile with the sun. And then as the day goes on, the moon is going to start coming into a sextile with Mars. So things get only better from the late kind of morning on. Once the moon's no longer opposing or squaring Jupiter, we're in the clear, and it's actually looking pretty sweet from kind of like the afternoon on. It's about like lunchtime. I'm Central Time here in Texas, so you might have to change your time zone. But once we're getting to about noon, 1 o'clock Central Time, things start to kind of ease up a little bit. Now there will be a lunar change. So we will see later in the evening, the moon will go into Scorpio. If you're up late, this is going to happen around 10 p.m. Central. And when the moon goes into Scorpio, we're not really focusing on these kind of optimistic, travel happy, education happy, kind of vibes with Venus and Sag. Now we're looking at what's going on with Mars and what's going on with Pluto. And so this will happen overnight. We'll see the moon square Pluto, which can bring up some drama, especially in kind of like social situations or with friendships. Joint finances also can definitely come under the microscope, where there can be some drama over spending or expenses. And we're looking at Mars coming into a square with Saturn, which is a square with Neptune, which is so interesting because I feel like usually when you see Mars in a superior square like this, Mars is like, I'm going to fight to the end, but because it's mutable signs, they're more open to change. Because it's also 29 degrees, it feels like this critical energy, and they're both Jupiter energies, right? Pisces and Sag are both ruled by Jupiter, which is retrograde in Cancer. I cannot tell you how many clients I've spoken to in this last week that feel almost like they're at this turning point with some of the squares, and they're saying to themselves, I just have to let this go. I just have to trust what's going on. My emotions, my dreams, my intuition, everything is going off saying, I'm not giving up. I'm just recognizing that something else better is on the way. And I was like, yes, everybody's getting it, So it's not about fighting until the last breath with Mars square Neptune. It can maybe be like, hey, you know what? Whose fight am I fighting here? Or what am I fighting for? Or why am I trying so hard to hold on to something that's kind of crumbling? And like, maybe it's time just to let this be. And so the Scorpio moon can really be feeling that. It can also make our dreams quite active, or there could be some nightmares or some really active, crazy things kind of happening in the ethers. So you might want to watch out for that on the 14th overnight. And Mars will be squaring Neptune all day. So speed, water, changes with things that are going on connecting to storms. We can see issues with airlines and problems with aircraft. Sometimes we see some things like, I don't like saying this, but it's like, oh, there was an accident, with like a plane, and like it crashed into like a coast, or it like crashed into the water, or like disappeared, right? Neptune. So we could hear some weird stuff happening with airlines and flights pretty much Sunday into Monday. And I would say that, unfortunately, even though there is a nice kind of vibe between early in the day with like the Libra moon and the sextile to the planets in Sag, there is this confusing energy that's in the air. Things feel tense. Maybe relationships feel a little rigged. There can also be this sense of like there is fog revolving around motivation and we just don't quite know what direction we're going in. Don't plan anything yet. The energy is too confusing. I think to navigate this on Sunday, feel everything, but don't make any big decisions. You know, if there is some confusion or some mixed anger or frustration that's kind of coming up, take a salt bath. Don't be sending angry drunk texts. I think some people might be kind of feeling like that and wanting to blame other people for things that are going on and not really recognizing like where that frustration is coming from. And it can be something that's kind of confusing. So just hold tight. So then when we get to on Monday, so now we're going to be moving to the 15th, we wake up in the morning and the moon has pretty much come out of the square with Pluto. So there could be still a little bit of emotional pressure, but that's starting to subside. Mars obviously now is no longer in that, oh my God, dazed and confused, where am I going vibe. Now it's in Capricorn and it's like game on. So this is one of those Sundays that I would be like, stop stressing about Monday. Don't have the Sunday blues. Hang out, be by water, stay hydrated. You know, if you need to have a long bubble bath, or if you need to listen to some music or write some poetry, do that. And you don't have to deal with Monday until you get to Monday, because the energy of having Mars in Capricorn is going to be like zing. Everything is going to start to kind of come together. Now, Mars is also at 0 degrees, and 0 degrees of the cardinal points is where we see some pretty significant events that happen. And so I'll be kind of watching to see what happens on the 15th. Is there some kind of dramatic change in direction with leadership, with government? Are we hearing more about, you know, scandals going on with prisons or churches, or is there some kind of military mobilization that's taking place? Maybe. Because, you know, Neptune is hovering around that 0 degree point as well. So it's not there yet. This is more about wrapping things up. But Mars has been squaring it, saying, hey, it's time to kind of clear up anything where there has been this mass kind of confusion or illusions that have been kind of, like I said, creating these kind of invisible barriers, so to say, that we've been dealing with. So on the 15th, on Monday, moon's in Scorpio. Obviously, we can be a little moody when the moon's in Scorpio. We're dealing with sometimes working through toxic emotions. Secrets come up. We feel vulnerable. We can be dealing with betrayal. There can be issues coming up with other people's money. We can be a little bit more kind of, I would say, scorping out. But like there is this sense of being like, what's really going on beneath the surface? And people can be a little bit more sensitive when the moon is in that sign. What I like is that at least it's picking up an energy of Mars that means well and wants to get something done. But we're not really going to see too much going on with the moon until the PM hours. And that's going to be when the moon starts coming into a trine with the North Node in Pisces. So it's a pretty uneventful day other than the Mars sign change. And we're going to start to see in the PM hours around 10 p.m. Central, the moon is trining the North Node. So it is about uncovering and getting clarity and bringing out the truth and what we've been afraid to talk about and doing like that emotional kind of clearing. And then I think that for the most part, you know, just keeping an eye on like that Mars and Capricorn, there is definitely going to be a sense of our vision becoming more clear about what we want to build and what we have to work on. And sometimes it means that we also have to clear the deck. Saturn and Neptune is very much dissolving things. And maybe there are certain structures and things we've built and we're like, this is actually not sustainable or it's not going to work and we just need to start over. So, you know, looking at the kind of the daily vibe of Monday, pretty quiet for the most part. Yes, we're starting to see the sun come into a square with Saturn, but it hasn't happened yet. And we're not really seeing any aspects that are negative involving the moon. So it's almost like Monday, the lights kind of snap on, and then all of that swampy, kind of confusing, kind of floating in the soup energy starts to drain, and clarity can really hit like cold water. As somebody who has a lot of planets in Capricorn myself, that's something that I've always like really enjoyed. I really I like jumping in like a cold pool or like in a cold lake. Like I have tried cold plunges, I've done Cairo, I've done all of that stuff. And I feel like there's something really great about that, just kind of shocking your system. So maybe that's something that, you know, people want to start doing. They start their day with actually like embracing the cold and like using that as a way to kind of build up some kind of like stamina and momentum. All right, so then we'll see on Monday. The advice that I have for you guys is, you know, write one non-negotiable goal, right? And I want you to come back to this actually on the 21st when we have the solstice, and I want you to refine it and add to it more. But write one goal down that is non-negotiable for you, because this is the starting point. This is the starting line of what will take 6 weeks to kind of build something that's going to be strong and beautiful. I also recommend deleting apps and things that waste your time. Maybe this means that you're eating more protein. Maybe this means that you're getting in some, extra hours at work, or maybe that you're going to be throwing on some leg weights when you go for your walk. Add a little bit more oomph into whatever it is that you're trying to kind of activate and work on in the Capricorn area of your life. Now, this will take us into Tuesday, which is going to be the 16th. And the key transits that we're going to be looking at on the 16th are going to be the Moon coming into a trine with Jupiter, which is positive. It's definitely very intuitive, emotional, receptive. We're healing the past. We're connecting with ancestors. Maybe there's transformations in our home and our joint finances. And then that's pretty much the only big aspect that we're going to be seeing on Tuesday. Now, the problem here is that this is the day that the sun is going to square Saturn. Okay, so part of this is it's kind of in the air all day on the 16th, and it's not even really going to hit until like the end of the night. So with the sun coming into square with Saturn, I keep telling you guys, Sagittarius is in superior position. So if you look at your chart, that Mercury, Venus, Sun, in Sagittarius is basically saying, I'm optimistic that we can do this and we can grow in this way and this can happen and everything can be so wonderful. And then the squares to Saturn is like, can it? You sure about that? Like there is like this sense of like doubting or questioning things and like wondering if something is skewed or if it's too good to be true or if we're just kind of like filling our heads with like pipe dreams. But if you stay optimistic, especially because of some of the inconjuncts that's happening to Jupiter, you're going to see the sun in conjunct Jupiter, you're going to see Venus in conjunct Jupiter this week. It does mean that, in order to do that, we have to be checking in with our emotions, maybe making some changes on the home front, and also being willing to let go of the past. We can't doubt, what direction we're going in, but we do have to be a little bit more realistic, and we have to be more pragmatic and practical. And I think that unfortunately Sag doesn't have those qualities. They're really great about figuring out the bigger picture, but you want to get something done, you're going to hand it off to a Taurus, you're going to hand it off to a Virgo, you're going to hand it off to a Capricorn, because these are the signs that are going to be like, okay, cool, we're going to go and build it, right? Or we're going to organize it. And so the beauty is that if we really want something that we've been dreaming about in Sagittarius season, the kind of the shift into Capricorn season is going to be like, cool, now we're actually going to get to work and we're going to start building it. So you're going to see stuff really start to kind of stabilize. But I think on the 16th, watch out for that sun square Saturn. That is a day where, yes, you're going to get stuck in traffic. Yes, you might not get the recognition from your boss. There's going to be some kind of delay with a package, or there's going to be something that is going to be limited and not feeling totally fulfilled. We kind of feel blocked when we see Saturn squares. So maybe go back and think about what happened last week when Mars was squaring Saturn. Although, Mars needed to kind of get squared because Mars can be a little too pushy. With Sun square Saturn, we could see more ego issues with authority figures, problems with men, and, like fathers, husbands, like some kind of conflict, or brothers. And I think that really the focus here is that the heart really wants to fly when it's in Sagittarius, but because it's coming into a square with Saturn, reality is really going to slam the door. There is going to be some kind of confusing kind of blockage. And this is a day where we're going to feel like we have to prove it. We have to prove ourselves to other people. So to navigate on the 16th, what you want to do is do the hard things today. That's what I would say. Do the hard things. One small win, I think, is going to beat 10 big plans. So instead of trying to feel like you have to do everything, focus on one thing that you know that you can accomplish on Tuesday and try to get it done. Know that with the moon trine Jupiter, there could be this emotional kind of fulfillment and being able to complete something with the moon starting to come into a trine with Saturn up to an overnight. We're also going to recognize that there is this emotional fulfillment because we completed something and there's a change and we're finally letting something go. And both of these kind of squares tie back to Jupiter. So I think for me, just personally, I've seen for a lot of clients, it's like, I've, finally called my brother, or I finally cleaned out the garage, or I finally decided that I was going to have that yard sale. And it seems like trivial things, but these are things that are taking up space, which in turn could actually be creating a lot of like emotional kind of like challenges or issues. How the effects I think that like clutter can kind of have on people. And so with Jupiter retrograde, we can kind of clear stuff out. We can kind of get a frame of mind for, well, what are we going to do with this room? Or what is going to be the plan with, how we're going to paint the house, or how we're going to, kind of reorganize it or whatever. So it's very practical in a lot of ways. So you will see that the moon will come into a trine with Jupiter, and that's going to be happening in the PM hours. And then you're going to see the sun is going to come into a square with Saturn. That's also happening in the PM hours. So the exact square is going to happen when some people are asleep. So it's going to be happening like around 11, 12 o'clock at night. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that things can't happen early in the day. So that's why I said try to get in your hard or your one difficult task in earlier in the day if you can on Tuesday, okay? All right, so we keep moving. We're going to move now to Wednesday, which will be the 17th. And on Wednesday, we're going to see first thing in the morning, the moon's going to oppose Uranus. Okay, guys, so I always am really good about giving you these dates. New moons, usually markets dump, right? Because as the moon is coming through the sign, you know, before it goes into the new moon, things kind of filter out because everything is clearing out. It's going to be new. Another thing is when we usually see the moon in a hard aspect to Uranus by like an opposition or a square, especially in Scorpio, we can definitely see a lot of drama going on with markets, and we can see something kind of bottom out. So we've got that aspect. We've got the Sun and Saturn squaring, which could be people being pessimistic and not optimistic about the fact that something's not kind of going well. And we also see Venus is starting to come into a square with Saturn. So this would be a day that I would be watching the markets because it does, to me, it doesn't look too positive. I also think that with the moon opposition to Uranus early, there can be a lot of static revolving around security, money, resources, stuff coming up about changes with banking, changes with the bond markets. And I also am looking at that moon coming into a trine with Saturn and Neptune, which I think is the silver lining. It's very, very intuitive. It means that we are embracing change. We are listening to our gut to kind of create firmer boundaries emotionally and also psychically. And then we will see midday, the moon will go into Sagittarius. So let's look at that. And that Sun-Saturn square is still kind of hanging around until that's about 26 degrees. So the moon will oppose Uranus first thing in the morning. And then it's going to go into Sag. And when the moon goes into Sag, we're not focusing so much on Mars. We're not focusing so much on Pluto. Now we're looking at Jupiter. Jupiter is retrograde. So this is going to be like the dark moon phase that's going to be starting up on the 17th because we are actually getting ready to go into what will be a new moon in Sagittarius, which is technically not happening until the 19th. So, you know, second half of the 17th and into the 18th, people can be kind of grumpy because things are shaking out. But know that on this day, this is the day that the post shadow ends, right? So remember we had Mercury retrograde in early November and the communication was like so chaotic around Halloween, and we saw Mercury come into conjunction with Mars and there was a bunch of conflict, people are angry, and then we were in a Mercury retrograde all of November. Okay, well, the post shadow ends. So that means that something that's gonna happen on the 17th is we can still see some shakeouts going on with communication. Whistleblowers, unexpected news, information from the past being revealed, and the moon is going to cross into Sagittarius and it's going to start heading towards a conjunction with Mercury, and Mercury is at the degree in which it started retrograding. So we can still see some big communication stuff, some big news. So far, I think it's been a lot about tech and stuff that's going on with changes with education. Like something I found like really interesting that's kind of a good example is, you know, Mercury going back and forth, and there's been a lot of conversations regarding, you know, how are we going to be starting to teach and influence and educate people about what's going on with AI on like an international level, and how do we start creating the frameworks for that and doing it in a moral and ethical way. This is Sagittarius, and also the squares to Saturn and Neptune. So it's kind of cool to see, you know, like Elon working with like El Salvador and helping them with the whole process of like really building that whole system and like helping with teaching AI and instructing like younger generations and how to use it in ethical ways and like how it can be beneficial. So that's kind of cool, but we might hear more news about that and how it's not just so much about education, but it's really about influencing and nurturing and growing, right? Jupiter is the dispositor, homes and families, and creating more wealth and abundance at home. And so I think we're going to hear about how other countries are maybe going to be, you know, talking about that or kind of adopting that kind of frame of mind as well. And we might still see some kind of shakeups going on with communications. That moon is going to sextile Pluto. Other than that, you're not really going to see much. Venus on this day will start, will it come into a conjunction with Venus? No, I don't think so. So nothing's squaring Saturn yet there. Nope, we're good. So we're going to watch the moon come into conjunction with Mercury in the evening hours overnight. And that's pretty much it. So there's not too much that's going to be going on the 17th. Maybe with Venus, you know, starting to kind of move into and in conjunct with Jupiter, and Jupiter is the dispositor, there can be some, you know, some shifts going on revolving around relationships and freedom and what we need at home versus what kind of the spirit wants, but that's not happening yet. So my advice for the 17th is, you know, watch in the morning, Moon in opposition to Uranus. There's going to be some shocks and surprises, likely financial. Then in the afternoon, there could be some like downloads or some new information that we're kind of getting. And then by the evening, things start to kind of like cool off and they start to subside. They don't feel as like intense. And then I would say expect the plot twist that's going to happen on Wednesday to happen before noon. And obviously be flexible. Try to adjust your love and money expectations without drama, okay? I know, easier said than done. All right, we go to the 18th. The 18th, we're going to see on Thursday, the moon is still in Sag. It is applying to a conjunction with the Venus transit in Sag. It's going to in conjunct and quincunx Jupiter, and it's going to square the North and South node. Wow, wow, wow. Quite a day. All right, so Sagittarius in a nutshell, you know, higher education, college campuses, big news from courts, things involving airlines or international travel, teaching, publishing, all Sag things. And so there's definitely going to be like a lot of news about, oh, what's going on with travel, holiday travel, airports. Remember, all this stuff squaring Saturn, so unexpected, unforeseen delays. It's also squaring Neptune, confusing situations going on revolving around traveling internationally or whether or not there's like weather issues. So that's also baked into what's going on kind of with the up and coming new moon. But the moon conjunct Mercury early in the morning is a good communication transit. I will give it that because it is really highlighting the fact that Mercury is getting ready to square the North and the South node. And it means, guess what? Some of us are going to have to travel. Some of us are going to have to learn something. We're going to have to check in with a lawyer or talk to a professional, or we're going to have to be able to kind of improve our perspective and how we see the world. And that could be culturally, that could be politically, whatever. So what will happen is, I think, you know, with Venus coming into a trine with Chiron, it is going to highlight being able to learn more about healing and what we've learned about relationships and our identity. And obviously this is a continuation of the dark moon transit. So know that people are going to be a little grumpy. Things are going to be shaking out, especially when it comes to relationships, because Venus is there, when it comes also to information and news. And I really feel like there can be a lot of ideas that can spark with the moon conjunct Mercury, especially early. And I think with the moon coming into kind of like a square with the North and South node, we're going to have some questions regarding our path. And this can be a day where there is some kind of like fateful events that are happening. And it looks like that square is going to be at a 12, which means certain things are going to kind of dissolve and fall apart, so other things can come together. Now, what does that mean? It might mean that you're being asked to do the opposite of what you usually do, you know, and it's about something connecting to your home. So if you're used to working at home, now you might have to go out and work in the world. If you're used to spending the holidays, you know, with your family, now you might be kind of doing it at home. There's like a little bit of like a flip-flop or redirecting something in regarding home, family planning, living situations, emotions, or dealing with the past. And not only is the moon squaring the North and South node, which is very strongly tied to, obviously, the moon, but we have mutual reception here between the moon and Jupiter. Jupiter in a lunar sign, the moon in a Jupiterian sign, and they're being like, is it about going out there and doing things big, or do we kind of stay small and play it safe? So I get the impression that a lot of people are going to be kind of like, which way do I go? And there can be some heart wounds that can be healed with Venus coming into a trine with Chiron. Now, brain dump everything, especially with Mercury conjunct the moon. Maybe forgive one person, including yourself, and definitely get some adequate sleep because we are starting to see that planets are now starting to come into a square with Neptune, where we can be feeling like we're kind of losing momentum a little bit. Again, we're running out of steam. So by the end of the night, we will see the moon make it all the way up to, 17, 18, 19 degrees. And then that's going to take us into the 19th, which is going to be Friday. Now on Friday in the morning, we will see the moon conjunct Venus. So now where yesterday was more of like a communication day, we're going to see on Friday it's more of a love day. It's more of a healing day. This is where we wake up and We want the, a good morning text. We want to, maybe plan a little bit of a getaway. We are feeling a little bit more optimistic and joyous and appreciative. And Venus isn't squaring Saturn quite yet. So I think that Friday, kind of coming into the dark moon when typically we're kind of moody, the morning feels very warm and it feels very inviting and kind of generous. And it also means that love can be found when we are on the move. So look for the sweetness if you are traveling, if you're in airports, you're at train stations, you're going to places you're not used to going to. There could be some love stories because the moon is going to meet with Juno and also with Venus and Sagittarius. So it's very strong for like my Sagittarius risings. It's very strong for my Gemini risings. It can also be very strong for my Leo risings. All of you guys might have some kind of love connections that can happen if it's happening in some of your, first house, fifth house, seventh house axis. All right, what else are we going to see on the 19th? Moon conjunct Venus early in the morning, so that's nice. And then we're going to come into what will be a new moon. So I kind of feel like Friday has this fresh start and like there is a very warm glow to it. And you're going to see Venus and the moon come into conjunction around the 19th, around 10 or 11 a.m. Central Time. Then the moon's going to hit Juno, which is highlighting, obviously, we know marriage and partnership. And then we're going to see the new moon that's going to be happening in the evening around 28 degrees. So beautiful new moon. Obviously, I think just the one challenge that I'm just trying to get around is just these squares to Saturn and Neptune. And there's a lot of, is this too good to be true? Is it real? Is it possible? Like, am I dreaming? Like, that's kind of the vibe I get. And Saturn and Neptune is kind of having all this Sag beaming down on them, which is basically allowing Sag to say, I believe it, so we can make our way through this, or I believe that happened for a reason. Have you guys seen the movie Sliding Doors? That's your homework this week. I know some of you guys, like I'm born in the late 80s, so it's one of my favorite movies, but I always think about life from that perspective. I always think about, where she goes through the movie and like what her life would have been like had she stayed on the train and, what would have happened versus had she, gone back home, and it shows you two alternate kind of like universes. Anyway, that's what I'm kind of feeling with this square. Sagittarius is, we're on an adventure, we have a plan, we've got somewhere we have to go. There's this overarching story of, like the main character going through this quest, and they just can't understand why the universe is intervening or why there is a delay. And then at the end, I'm not going to ruin it for you guys, but you'll see what I'm talking about, where the universe always kind of will reroute you. And if something is meant to happen, it will happen, and it may not happen the way that you think, and you may not even sure how you're going to get there. But this reminds me a lot of that movie. So watch it, give me your guys' feedback. You guys will get what I'm kind of saying. There is something mystical and magical about any delays or setbacks that we're having this week, because it's almost like the universe is like, no, not over there. That's not good for you. Stay away from that. Stay steady, stay focused, and believe. Especially this is the season of believing that better things are yet to come. You just can't quite see it, right? That's the test, I think, of Pisces. Everything's invisible. Anyway, so that's a new moon that's quite active. We've got a lot of aspects that are happening in the sky, squares of Saturn and Neptune, and we also see a slight trine to Chiron, so it is good for healing, in conjunct to Uranus, so there's definitely some shocks and surprises. Quincunx, obviously, to Jupiter. So go watch the video if you guys want to see some of that stuff. But I would say nice, warm glow vibes. I love like the Venus, Juno stuff that's going to be happening. Lots of weird serendipitous kind of like love stories. And I would say on Friday the 19th, write down one big intention. Okay, so you already did the other thing for the Mars stuff, but now write down one big intention. Say it out loud. Burn the paper. That would just be like such an easy kind of like ritual for the new moon in Sagittarius, because this is where we're planting those new seeds. So this is now going to take us into Saturday the 20th, which is going to be here, and we wake up and it's a different vibe. Okay, yes, we still have one more kind of like Sun, Neptune, a couple more Saturn and Neptune squares, but this Saturday things take off like a rocket ship, because it's right after the new moon, so everything's growing, and the moon is going to come into conjunction with Mars and Capricorn. Now, truth be told, Mars and Capricorn, even though it's super powerful and it's amazing, it can be very militant. Some people could see it as being, too bossy, or needing to initiate things too quickly, and high expectations and high standards, and that's that kind of Saturn signature that comes with the sign. But I think with the conjunction to the moon and the moon's kind of debilitation here, I think a lot of people are going to be emotionally frustrated with something. There's going to be something that's going to come up. Unless you have like a Venus in Capricorn, unless you've got, you know, maybe Capricorn in your 5th house and you're a Virgo rising, or if you're a Cancer rising, then it could be a very sexy time. Moon and Mars could be like, oh, there's some passionate stuff going on. But I think other people are going to get a little emotionally flustered. So that'll be first thing in the morning on the 20th. And because it's going to conjunct Mars, it's also going to continue moving through Capricorn, and it'll sextile the North Node, and it's going to trine the South Node. So this means that basically drive is very high, impatience is high, willingness to get work done is like off the Richter scales. And unfortunately in the background, direction is still a little hazy because we've got the sun that's now starting to come into a square with Neptune. So we're like, I have all these things that I have to do, but like I'm kind of feeling like I'm getting burnt out. So watch for that, and also watch for that Sun-Neptune square, which looks like it is going to perfect around, that'll be at 29. It'll be in the PM hours. So it looks like both of the squares that we see to Neptune are at night this week. At least if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere. And then what else do we have going on Saturday? Trine the South Node, Sun square Neptune. Oh, Venus is going to square Saturn. See, Saturday is quite the day. I think with the Sun square Neptune, we don't see things so clearly, and there is a sense of like having some ego issues and maybe kind of feeling like our vibes are lower and we're confused and we're still, it's so weird because the Moon Mars is like, do it now. And the Sun square Neptune is like, is this really what I want to do? Is this the right move? And then Venus square Saturn is, oh, the consequences of if I have a knee-jerk, kind of like a knee-jerk reaction, you know, is it going to cost me more money? Is it going to cost me a relationship? You know, is there going to be some kind of not being totally fulfilled or satisfied with like making the impulse buy? Ooh. So I would say on Saturday, you know, take off the rose-colored glasses. If you're not sure, wait. Not a day for making big financial decisions, big financial or luxury purchases with Venus square Saturn. Relational issues can definitely come up with that square. On the other hand, I feel like Mercury squaring the nodes, which will happen earlier in the day, is going to reinforce the need that we have to communicate something. We have to say something. It's like, hey, you need to know this information. And it might mean that it's going to be involving business or transportation or communications or gadgets or learning. And it may mean that there's a conversation that has some hurt feelings, and people might not understand why something is, you know, coming across the way that it's coming across, or why things are kind of breaking down. But then there is people reacting to things. So I would say, look at the Capricorn area of your chart. Pick one thing relating to that house and murder it. No multitasking. Say no to everything else. I know it's Saturday, but do that one thing. It's also Saturn's day, right? And Saturn will reward you because Saturn is direct. So for example, Capricorn, you know, for an Aries rising, I'm going to tell them, get some work done on Saturday. Do something. Be productive. But, you know, for, let's say, a Libra rising, it's going to be, you have to do something around the house. You have to fix something. You have to do something for your family. So find that one thing on Saturday. Just murder it, get it done. If you can get it done by the evening, then you're going to, I don't think, be so locked into like this kind of Neptune, Saturn square stuff. All right. And then on Sunday, you're going to see, we wake up and the moon is still in Capricorn, but now it's coming into better aspect with some stuff. Now it's starting to sextile Saturn and Neptune throughout the day. We will see it will oppose Jupiter, which could bring some kind of heavy feelings of I've got all of this work and all of this home stuff, or I'm pulled between two different houses in my chart. And similar to what we saw Sunday, you know, on the 14th when this week started, we see a moon square Chiron and oppose Jupiter. So it does bring up this, why is it always me? Why is it all on me? Why do I have to do this by myself? You know, kind of Chiron and Aries stuff. Or why am I being left out? And that will sting a little bit, especially if you have anything around that 21, 22, 23 degrees. It looks like the square is going to be at 22, which is a military degree. That's a Capricorn degree. So some kind of, you know, government, you know, comments, you know, statements, things that are being said. There is some kind of news regarding, you know, individuals and home and housing, or some military stuff going on. And this is the day where we are going to see, obviously, the sun enter into Capricorn. So here in the Northern Hemisphere, first day of winter solstice, really kind of powerful, kind of reset point, you know, kind of darkest night of the year. And from here forward, we're moving towards what will be the spring equinox, bringing in and ushering in the light. Obviously, if you're in other parts of the world, I hope you guys are enjoying your warm weather. So we're going to be seeing the moon oppose Jupiter and square Chiron, which is kind of high intensity around 7 p.m. That's Central Time. And then we are going to see the moon continue to move through Capricorn, and it will come into a trine with Uranus overnight into what will be Monday the 22nd. So really, I think that the big shakeup is just going to be the sun entering into a new sign, and Capricorn season kind of begins. But moon sextile Saturn, sextile Neptune, it is about kind of releasing and letting things go. And there could be a lot of just emotional kind of purging that's happening. So watch for the emotional peak that can be happening early on Sunday. Also, there's like this quiet power that starts to set in when, you know, the sun goes into Capricorn and Mars is there, and then we've got Saturn and Neptune kind of connected to that, and it's about, you know, taking time to really step back and really reevaluate. Almost like meditations revolving around, you know, being at the top of a mountain or climbing a mountain, getting to the top and seeing the elevation and looking down and being able to visualize and kind of give yourself credit or a pat on the back for how far you've come. Being able to overcome things, right, I think is going to be like the big storyline of the end of, you know, December going into the beginning of 2026 when we start seeing Capricorn planets sextiling Saturn and Neptune. I think, you know, I would also say to navigate Sunday, feel the feelings, let the feelings hit. They're definitely going to come up. I think then focus on planting some kind of new seed and finding a way to ritualize the solstice wherever you are. I also really like the idea, like I like when it's solstice to get up and see the sunrise, because I feel like that is the real energy of renewal. This is from here forward, everything is going to be brand new. Yes, you know, Aries season is technically the beginning of the zodiac, but really when you think about it, everything from here on begins to grow. So you can set potent intentions, you know, now under the solstice. You can do it when Mars shows up. You can do it when you have the Capricorn new moon next month. But there's definitely this need to kind of welcome in the warmth and welcome in the light. So whether you want to light, you know, 2 pillar candles, or you want to sit outside and have a cup of coffee or tea and you want to watch the sun come up, great way to be able to kind of ritualize that and really welcome in that warmth that's coming up with Mars moving through that sign. So that's the week ahead, guys. I hope that that's helpful for you. I am going to take you through Mars and Capricorn and give you guys some pointers and some notes about how this is going to be impacting your rising sun or moon sign. I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice, and I will be using the whole rising sign system to show you guys where Mars is moving through the sign of Capricorn. As a reminder also, if you want to look at this from Placidus, just find which house is 0 degrees of Capricorn, and you might have to listen to more than one rising sign. I do recommend listening to your rising sign first to see where in your life this action is taking place, and then listen to your sun sign to see how that's impacting your ego, your career, your happiness, your creativity, and the moon sign to see that's how that's impacting you emotionally or your home. I also want to remind my Aries, Scorpios, and Capricorn risings, you guys are going to be most impacted by this transit next to the other cardinal signs who will experience either oppositions or squares. So Cancer, Libra, and Aries, you guys will be feeling the effects of this as well. All right, we're going to start with my Aries and Aries risings. What's up, guys? Your chart ruler is on the move, and I have to tell you, the future is looking bright for my Aries and Aries risings. It's almost like, yes, it's the end of the year, but you guys are going to get so much work done, especially over the next 6 weeks when Mars, your chart ruler, moves through your 10th house of career and reputation, Capricorn. Now, it also rules your 8th house, Aries, so there is a strong tie to regeneration, transformation, other people's money. And I think that what you're going to find is the theme for Mars going through Capricorn for the next month or so is a personal rebirth that you're going through. It becomes public. Now, it is possible that power struggles that have gone on in the past now actually transform into promotions. I do predict for a lot of you guys that the triple Cazimi taking place the first week or so of January of 2026 is a big moment for you. It's a big breakthrough for your career. There's probably going to be some massive financial or kind of personal boundary reset. I think to really crush the transit for the next 6 weeks, you have to act like the boss before you receive the title. This is about daily visibility, moving and being seen, not hiding, really putting yourself out there. Good luck, Aries. Let me know what happens. All right, for my Taurus and Taurus risings, you guys are going to experience Mars moving through the sign of Capricorn, fellow sister Earth sign, in your natal 9th house. Now, Taurus, for you guys, at some point throughout this transit, you are going to have trines to your sun, moon, or rising, and certainly you'll have trines to Uranus as well. So I think it's going to be really great for you guys. As you know, Mars is traditionally the ruler of your 7th house of relationships. So whether this is your therapist, your clients, your spouse, your one-on-one partnerships, and it's also directly tied to your 12th house, what's hidden, and the subconscious. So as Mars moves through the 9th house for you, Taurus, this basically means it's lighting up the area of your chart that deals with travel, your beliefs, teaching, legal matters, anything connected to higher learning. And it is possible that there is this hidden drive that's coming up in your partnerships that's really pushing you to get out there and explore. So whether that's exploring with a partner, meeting new people, maybe traveling to meet with clients, it could also mean that there is some kind of pursuit where you're working with a teacher, you're working with a legal kind of professional. And really the theme here, I think, is going to be about taking chances and taking risks. It could also be about learning. I'm really waiting to see what happens when Mars comes into a trine with Uranus, which obviously it's going to be closer to the end of this transit around January the 20th. But it means that some of you guys might actually get like a publishing deal. There might be travel that is really significant then. A sudden mentor can kind of show up for you. And obviously having the Mars and Venus kind of conjunction even earlier in the month can mean that you can actually like have a long distance relationship or you're traveling with a partner. So I do think that to really crush this transit, I would be focusing on daily studying or, maybe content creation, maybe marketing, and, maybe focusing on learning one new thing and working with another person. So whether doing that with a partner or doing that with like a mentor or a teacher. And I would also say, put yourself in that teaching and education role. Teach one thing that you had to learn the hard way to other people that could really drive your audience. It could bring in more people, more interest. And I also think it's going to help you really kind of pursue some of the desires of connecting and being with other people because of Saturn's kind of connection to this transit in your 11th house. So you can be sharing with community in some way, shape, or form. I hope that's helpful for you and you guys enjoy this transit. All right, my Geminis and Gemini risings, you guys are going to experience Mars transiting through the sign of Capricorn. It'll be moving through your natal 8th house. So the good news is that Mars really likes being in the 8th house, okay? This is a house of shared money. It's about sex. It's about debt. It's about intimacy and transformation. Mars is traditionally tied to your 11th house of friends, goals, and other people's resources, and your 6th house of health, habits, and also coworkers and your daily routine. So it's obvious to me that the themes of Mars going through the 8th house for you guys is really going to be, I think, about networks and routines fueling joint resources. Now, what you're going to want to watch, I think, is when Mars starts to kind of come into a sextile with the North and the South node. It might release a little bit of pressure because I know they're squaring some of you guys who are like, 10, 11, 12 degrees of Gemini. And that sextile, which will be happening around the 29th of December, is actually going to help bring about some much needed change. You will also see Mars coming into conjunction with Mercury around January 18th. And this is one where I think a lot of you guys are going to collaborate with another person. There's maybe going to be some inheritance, some kind of financial break, some kind of unexpected money coming your way, or changes when it comes to loans or finances. And it's going to change your money situation in a very positive way. I think to really crush this transit, what you guys want to focus on is tracking your money, tracking money that's being spent, treating it like it's a necessity because the 8th house is about what's going through the credit cards, what's going on with the loans, and also tracking all of your tasks and negotiate like your life depends on it because you can actually really strike a deal and you can potentially get people to up your salary, pay for things, reimburse you for stuff. You can also have some big breakthroughs if you're dealing with insurance or like debt or debitors in some way, shape, or form. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. Definitely a lot of passion with a Mars transit, that's for sure, in the 8th house. All right, Cancer and Cancer rising. What's going on, my friends? You guys are going to have Mars transiting through Capricorn, your opposite sign, moving through your 7th house of relationships. I remember saying to a lot of my Cancer risings, I was like, just wait. I was like, just wait until you get to about the end of December through the beginning of January, and you see all of this energy move through Capricorn in your 7th, and you also see that beautiful new moon that's going to be in a Saturn sign and sextiling Saturn. It means those of you Cancer risings who are like, I can't find anybody, you're going to find someone. So what you're going to find with this is that Mars rules your natal 5th house of true love and romance, creativity and children, self-expression. And it's also tied to your reputation, your status, but this is also your status. So am I single? Am I partnered? Am I an employee? Am I a CEO? That kind of stuff. How do people know me? So watching your 5th house lord go through the 7th house, first of all, is amazing because it's exalted, and also because it's going to give you the opportunity to have more passion, more charisma, and it can really heat up relationships over the next 6 months with some of the transits taking place. But I also think about that this is good for selling products, getting recognition, meeting with clients, and there can also just be a lot of physical activity with partners. Now, the downside is that yes, Mars in the 7th house can bring people who could be combative and argumentative. But if you're working with a partner, working out with a partner, doing some light hiking, or maybe whenever you guys are hanging out, you're drinking something that is warm, or maybe you are lighting candles, you can actually kind of diffuse some of the more kind of heavier energy of Capricorn, and you can get a lot of relationship stuff done when you have Mars in this sign. So I think that for a lot of you guys, career and creativity, it's going to flow through your one-on-one relationships. So I predict for my Cancer and Cancer risings that what you'll find when Jupiter starts opposing all of this is that there will be some tests that will come up where you're going to feel like it's about, is it about business or is it about my personal life? But that triple Cazimi that's going to take place, I think is going to lock in a potential partner that could make you guys a power couple. So to crush the transit of Mars in your 7th house, this is just about bringing your partner, whether that's your business partner or romantic partner, into the vision or cutting them loose. You have to decide, are we going to build this together? Or are we going to turn things loose? And if we are working together, where are we going, right? This is influenced by Saturn in your 9th. Are we traveling together? Are we learning together? Are we going to be getting married? A lot of people are going to be talking about getting married in ceremonies and other celebrations. Because that's what the 9th house can be. So you have to dream big, and you have to have goals that you guys are focusing on together, and you set those intentions around that new moon. But if you're single, somebody younger, somebody who could be kind of hot and sexy, Capricorn energy is like very daddy energy that can kind of show up, and you'll see this energy really build, especially as Venus and Mercury and eventually that new moon all plays out between now and the end of January. So watch for that. All right, we've got my Leo and Leo risings. You guys are going to be experiencing a Mars transit through the sign of Capricorn in your natal 6th house. Whoo, Mars loves being in the 6th. I like a malefic transit through the 6th house. Like having had Saturn there the last couple of years, and like now when I see like Mars go through there, I'm like, bring it. Because the 6th house can really give that planet the terrain to do what it needs to do. And remember, the 6th house can be about overcoming obstacles and defeating, people who are kind of out to get you. It can also mean this is about getting physically active, focusing on your health, getting a lot of work done, moving offices, finding jobs, getting organized. So Mars has this more kind of Virgo energy that can really get a lot of stuff done in Capricorn in your 6th house. I think you guys are going to like it. Mars does rule your 4th house of home and family. It's also directly tied to your 9th house of traveling and education. So if you're like, I'm trying to juggle work and traveling, or I'm trying to juggle, planning out a big move or a big vacation, what do I need to get done at home, or what do I need to handle on the home front, before I leave, or getting coverage for my pets, or maybe this is a time where you're setting up a home office because you're going to be going back to school and you need a space to be kind of studying and learning. You can get a lot of work done. So there's a multitude of different ways this can kind of play out. But just know that because of the tie to your 9th house through Aries, this is about beliefs and roots really fueling your daily discipline, and that becomes like your brand. So I think for you guys, I would be watching for when Mars comes into a square with Chiron, because that can like dig up these like old I'm not enough kind of wounds that come through your daily grind, and it's perfect for healing fuel. I would also say whether it's the Mars transit, whether it's the new moon in Capricorn, whether it's the triple conjunction in Capricorn, The sun will be a part of that, you guys, okay? So you'll be able to have better clarity with your work, with also your routine and also your health. But I think that there is going to be an amazing opportunity for you guys to have like a complete glow up, whether it comes to your health and habits or your work. So I would really focus on having one non-negotiable daily habit, okay? This could mean, I am gonna, go for a 10-minute walk. I am gonna, hit the gym every day. I am gonna read, 20 pages of a book. I am gonna send X amount of job applications. Whatever you have to do, there needs to be something that you do every day. And I want you to track it, and do it in a way where you're, keeping like stats and logs on it. And I want you to do that all the way through January. Likely you'll find just, oh my gosh, I make a list, I check things off the list, I get it done. You'll just have so much more momentum to focus on health and organization, and your productivity, I think, is just going to go through the roof, especially when you see the sun coming into conjunction with Mars and Venus. I have a feeling a lot of you guys are going to either be getting a new job or you're going to be embracing like a new fitness routine. Definitely let me know what happens. All right, so for my Virgos and Virgo risings, what's up, guys? You're going to have Mars going through Capricorn in a fellow sister Earth sign in your natal 5th house. So it'll be trining some of your placements in Virgo at some point, including the South Node in your sign. I love Mars going through the 5th house. I think it's a great transit, especially because Mars is tied to the mind, how you think, what you have to say, what you learn, and how you move. And the 8th house, which deals with intimacy, sex, vulnerability, other people's money. And who doesn't love a good Mars, Venus, conjunction that's going to be happening in the 5th house? There could be some really amazing kind of love stories happening for some of my Virgos and Virgo risings. And with Saturn's kind of influence on all of this transit, with Saturn now direct in Neptune, those of you guys who have been in relationship land where you feel unfulfilled or you're not getting what you need, it's really about kind of releasing and letting some of those people go. And it's opening your heart space up with this Mars transit to somebody new, meeting somebody locally, meeting somebody online, meeting somebody at bars, restaurants, entertainment places. And if you are partnered, it's about really finding more time for kind of romance and making that the priority to really enhance relationship kind of connection with Saturn and Neptune, finishing up their tour in your 7th house. So I think that you might find that other people's money and sharp words can ignite some kind of creative fire where you're like, that's a great idea, I'm gonna write that down, or I'm gonna blog about it, or I'm gonna create something. It can also mean that when you start seeing all of the planets going through the 5th house, children become more of an emphasis in your life. It can also be revolving around pregnancy, new love affairs and connections, self-employment, and kind of taking risks creatively. And certainly I think the Mercury conjunct Mars transit is going to be interesting to watch around the 18th for you guys, because you might have like one pitch or one post or something that gets a lot of recognition, something that you've created or something that you have to say. I also think that to crush this transit, Virgo, I would just create every single day. And I always tell my Virgo risings this, like Capricorn means work, 5th house means fun. You have to treat fun like it is your job. You have to make time for it, you have to schedule it. And that means that you have to do this also likely to enhance your love life. So go places that you enjoy and you can go to after work, right? Capricorn. It could also mean that maybe you go out with the work colleagues. Maybe you are making more of an effort to go to the venues or, go to trivia, or, Saturn is where other people are. So it does look like you're going to have to go with other people, or you're trying to enhance the likelihood of meeting others if you're single. But those of you guys in committed relationships, really focus on kind of bringing back the magic and maybe having some good old-fashioned date nights. And I do think that if you guys are, willing to take risks, whether it's what you create or what you love, I think that it's going to be something that's going to be beautiful. And it could seem like something very kind of minor, like, oh, I'm just, I'm doing this as a hobby, or, we're just seeing each other, but it could actually turn into something that you actually really love. So I hope you guys enjoy that transit. All right, for my Libras and Libra risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Mars transiting through your natal 4th house, obviously moving through a sign that will square you inevitably at some point. And the 4th house is your roots. So this is your home, this is your family, it's anything connected to property, it could be one of your parents, it could be your roommates, and anything revolving around just the actions at home. Now, Mars for you rules your 2nd house of money and resources and stability and self-esteem, and your 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So As I always tell everybody when they go through the Mars transit, I'll tell you guys, Mars, when it goes through Capricorn in the 4th house, has the positive of you can get a lot of work done. It has the negative of there can be some tension with family or some issues at home. So be careful with ovens, things that are hot. Be very cautious also with accidents and things in the home. Be mindful that there could be a lot of money being spent on designing, decorating, entertaining, supporting, moving, all of those things. And you're having to work together with Mars, which is other people. So whether that's a partner, whether that's your family and family relationships. And it helps to have a to-do list. Like whenever Mars goes through this part of my chart, I always try to have a list of things where I'm like, these are what I forgot to hang up when we moved in. These are boxes that I need to go through. These are closets I need to organize. And I'll go through my entire kitchen because the 4th house is my kitchen. And I will sharpen knives. I will, figure out what utensils and things kind of have to go. Sometimes I'll, sell stuff and get rid of extra things that are in good condition. Other times I will go and buy, new things that we kind of need for the house. So I recommend doing that. So that way you can diffuse some of the more kind of challenging energies of Mars. But I think that the theme for my Libras and Libra risings is going to be partnerships and self-worth that are going to reshape your foundation. So it's about getting rock solid with the idea of where are we going, what are we building, and what are our goals, and how can we be able to build that together. So it's 6 weeks for a lot of you guys. I think that number one, you're going to see Saturn influencing this. So it's great for organizing your home, decluttering your home, cleaning up offices, cleaning up pet stuff. Like I am literally waiting for this transit to organize my office and my office closets and get rid of a lot of stuff, even though I know I'm not going to be moving for a while, just to declutter and get stuff ready for the new year. This is also a time where maybe you're helping family or you're working on odds and ends of things that need to be unpacked after they're moving, or maybe you're going to be hiring people to come in and kind of work on things or fix things around the house. You could do that. I would say that the Saturn sextile is really rewarding building a home base that supports your empire. So think about what you can actually organize and kind of clean up and get together if you do any kind of work from home or anything that's going to be able to better support kind of your family. I would say it's a great way to use the transits if you're planning on renovating, if you're going to be moving, if you are going to be setting hard family boundaries. And really making your home your fortress. So like Mars in Capricorn could mean you're putting up fencing. Maybe there's going to be some kind of electric aspect to it. Maybe there is going to be, protective dogs that are going to be in the space. Maybe you're getting a new security system. That kind of stuff is what I would be kind of looking at. And look forward to some of the sextiles to Saturn and Neptune, because I do feel like it's going to help you feel, I think, better protected. And also like you're just getting a lot of things done. Now the Mars and Venus conjunction will be there. So it does look like a goal revolving around you and your family is going to become possible, or there's going to be some family kind of reunion or some kind of big family glow up story that's going to be happening in early January. So let me know what happens, Libra. All right, we got my Scorpios and Scorpio risings. What's up, guys? Your chart ruler's on the move. So Mars rules your chart as a Scorpio rising, and Pluto is your co-ruler, not making any aspects to Pluto, but it's now leaving your money house and it's going into your 3rd house for the better part of the next 6 weeks. Now, Scorpio, wherever Mars is where you are, okay? And Mars doesn't just rule you, it's also directly connected to your health, your habits, your work, and your productivity or pets. So when Mars goes into the 3rd house, it means that there is this fusion of communication, siblings, short trips, and you. I think the themes that you want to watch for is hidden drives and raw identity, and it might be exploding through words and also your local environment, because you're going to see Venus that's going to be moving through there too. Maybe getting on a content schedule for those of you guys who have websites, or you have social media, or you're trying to do business online, or you're working on a website. It can also be great for getting into a walking, biking, or cycling routine. Obviously, this is all influenced by Saturn, and Saturn's in the 5th. So getting into a creative writing schedule, a content schedule, communicating and, talking about creativity, learning about, playing instruments, creating art, designing. So if you have to learn like a new application, or if you have to learn a new software, it's a good time to do that. But you might go on more short distance trips. There might be more kind of conversations and communication with siblings or neighbors. Maybe just with Venus and, the Sun and Mars, through some kind of local community dynamic. If you're a single Scorpio rising, you could meet somebody, or you can meet somebody online or through like local work. If you're in a relationship, your communication with your partner or your spouse is going to likely actually really improve. And you're going to find that it's improving where you're talking about the future. So talking about your career goals, children, you know, what it is that you find joyful, and you might get some nice little short weekend kind of getaways in here before February. But I think that the sextile to Saturn and Neptune, and also, you know, seeing some of those aspects play out in your own chart really is going to show you that there are intuitive messages that can also kind of come up in conversations that feel very fated. And I think that this is all about feeling more confident when it comes to communication, maybe speaking the truth that might feel uncomfortable, you know, daily. But if you want to write, post, teach, argue, whatever you want to do, you're using your voice throughout this entire time. And really look forward to, some of you guys might either be moving, you might be writing or launching a website, or maybe you're looking at possibly getting a new car, or taking on some kind of like new education focus, and that is going to be happening like the first week or so of January 2026. I hope it's a good one for you guys. All right, for Sag and Sag rising, you guys are going to experience Mars moving through Capricorn in your natal second house of money, self-esteem, income, spending power. And just talk to the Scorpio risings, they'll tell you they spent a bunch of money probably with the Mars transit. It always burns a hole in your pocket. So 6 weeks of making money, but also potentially spending money, all right? And Mars is a bit of like a tricky planet for you guys, because Mars does rule the 12th house of your subconscious and what's hidden. It's also directly tied to your 5th house of romance, creativity, having fun, and self-expression. So when Mars goes through the second house, it's basically tying those two themes into your second house, and it's having you focus on, you know, the daily grind. Maybe it's about, you know, money that comes from being self-employed, finances tied to children, investing in having fun and new hobbies. It could also mean that this is about, you know, finding ways to have fun that doesn't necessarily break the bank. Now, I also think that there can be some unexpected money stuff that can happen. And even though Mars is going through there, you know, you're going to have other planets that are going to be going through there too. And there's going to be a Mars and Venus conjunction. So I think for a lot of Sag risings, certainly, you know, December and January can be some of the strongest periods for you guys financially all year. The only thing that you want to kind of keep in mind is that you are going to be seeing that this is being influenced by Saturn and Neptune in your 4th house. So there can mean that you're having to spend more money because of changes in your home and your living situation, i.e. having to move, rent going up. Maybe it means that you're making a big home purchase. Maybe it means that you're making a big vehicle purchase, or you're having to contribute some way to helping family. Or maybe it means that you have goals of being able to, you know, move here in the next year, make some big home changes. So you're really incentivized to make money over the next month or so. But watch that, you know, this week planets are coming, you know, into a square with Neptune. So there is a sense of there being a little bit of a fog, and then money is going to start to flow in systems that you're going to be locking in over the next month. I think if I were a Sag rising, I would be like, all right, I would want to monetize one of my routines or skills this week and find ways to raise your rates, right? You're only going to get paid as much as people you know, believe that they're worth. So if you're coming into it not knowing your worth, you're potentially shortchanging yourself. But a lot of Sag and Sag risings who have their own business, they think are going to be like, prices are going up next year because expenses are going up. And also like, I'm just putting my, you know, back into everything that I'm doing, and something has to change. So there's a very strong kind of financial signature. And I think for a lot of you guys, you're going to be investing in new office space. There can also be investing more in health. You know, Mars and Venus coming into conjunction are going to really light up your 6th and your 12th house. But opportunities to get more into like affording more and some luxury purchases are likely going to be happening after the new year. So you'll see that like the first 10 days or so. But I hope you guys enjoy this, and I hope that it comes with not only, I think, better financial success and abundance, but also just a really healthy sense of self-esteem. Good luck. All right, my Cappies, you guys are the star of the show. You will be experiencing Mars going through your sign. So you get this once every 2 years. Make the most of it, especially with some of the really rare and unusual conjunctions to Venus and the Sun, and some of the oppositions we're going to see to Jupiter. Trust me on this, guys. Like, that new moon in Capricorn is going to be like a relationship magnet. Now, Mars is going through your sign, so it's moving through the first house. Not only is it exalted in your sign, where you know how to really make that energy work for you, it's really kind of picking yourself up by the bootstraps energy. But Mars loves being in the first house. So what you guys really need over the next 6 weeks is a morning routine. Now, if you already have one, then I would say look to where Saturn and Neptune is, and it may not be what you traditionally think, getting up, reading the newspaper, having your coffee. It might mean that it's including journaling or reading a book or doing some meditation or going for a walk or something that's going to be more in flow because Saturn is influencing this transit. Breathwork exercises can be great as well, or, you know, feeling like you're getting into a habit where you're listening to something when you're driving to work that's going to be more inspirational, or being in tune with your intuition, and being more open to receiving messages. But Capricorn, obviously, Mars is tied to your goals and your friends and your networks. It's also directly tied to your home and your family. So you might feel like you're more willing to take action in planning a move, making some changes with your home life, initiating the phone calls with siblings, talking more about your goals. And you're going to have just so much energy and momentum and vitality that you're going to be surprised just the speed of how much or how quickly life is kind of moving over the next month or so. I feel like that not only will you start to see major changes in your networks, and you could almost be like the ringleader for like parties and kind of collaborations and social gatherings, but it's also going to make you somebody who's even more ambitious than usual and attracting a lot of people. And it's going to give you the opportunity to go after your goals when it comes to situations with your home and also your family, because Mars rules your fourth. So maybe you guys are going to find that, you know, the triple Cazimi around the first week of January is sparking some kind of public rebirth. And it might mean that you're like, hey, I've moved, I've relocated, I just want to introduce myself, I'm new here, and you're going to community, you know, kind of group meetings, or maybe you're starting a group or initiating some kind of like networking group online. And it's going to really be great because I think a lot of you guys are really going to just dig that energy for the first week or so, where you're really feeling empowered and you're really embracing the new year. And that's because you're going to be playing with home field advantage. You're going to have so many planets that are going to be in your sign. So my advice is dress for success, right? Make sure that you're getting up and you are really not only physically, but mentally reminding yourself of just how strong, capable, and confident and successful that you are. There has to be some kind of verbal thing because Saturn's in the third. Might be something you write, might be something you repeat driving to work, whatever you got to do. The other thing is I think that this is about really speaking like the authority that you're becoming. And I think it has to start and really initiate once Mars is getting into your sign. And I hope you guys enjoy this transit. I especially think you guys are really going to like the triple conjunction, and when planets start trining Uranus, I think there can be some really good creative and kind of romantic things that can happen. But you're like a magnet pretty much from mid-December all the way through the end of January. And you guys have to let me know what your morning routines look like. I mean, I think if I was a Capricorn rising, I would get up and I would probably try to go for a walk or a hike, put on some leg weights, or do like a Stairmaster, because you guys need to climb. And then I would maybe do a little bit of journaling, or I would be doing some affirmations. But it's got to be about physical and spiritual because of that blend between Capricorn and Pisces. Let me know what your morning routines look like. I'd love to hear. All right, for my Aquarius and Aquarius risings, you guys are going to do Mars in Capricorn in your natal 12th house for the next several weeks, which is like a more kind of subtle, subdued, behind the scenes kind of energy. And you will definitely feel that throughout the month of December as planets are moving through Capricorn. It's this reevaluation and reassessment before you're coming into kind of Aquarius season, which will be your rebirth season. Now, Mars rules your career and anything that deals with your professional life or work or status. It's also directly tied to your third house of communication, short distance travel, siblings, vehicles, and learning. So Mars going through the 12th house, one thing you got to watch out for is that is pretty common. We do see issues revolving around nightmares. We can see that we're more likely to kind of burn up or have fevers, or we can become a little restless, or there can be some repressed kind of energy or anger that comes up. But I do think for a lot of you guys, you're kind of coming to terms with the fact that one phase of your career is ending and another one is beginning. And I say that because of Saturn's influence, that you're willing to, maybe let some things go to let something new in. Maybe you're sacrificing working in one department or working certain hours or for one position because, something new is kind of on the way. And I think you've dealt with this really since the Mercury retrograde for the last month or two. Now, the other way of looking at this is it's about resting, recuperating, being behind the scenes, and healing. And so the 12th house can be hospitals, it can be healing centers, private spaces. I think that if you're doing meditation practices, if you're reading sacred texts, if you're maybe, finding a way to move the body and, kind of keep away any illness or stillness that would be really positive, you want to keep warm. And I also feel like this is where beliefs in hidden realms really can fuel like a private overhaul that's really going to kind of help prepare you for your 2026 kind of glow up. Now, Mars will enter into your sign around the 23rd. But before that, it's almost like you have to go through this cocoon period where, you're a caterpillar and then you're going to turn into a butterfly, and you have to release things now. So that way it almost becomes like rocket fuel as you get into the end of January. I think to crush this transit, it's not really about acting. It's more about kind of like tapping into your intuition, and having like a daily solitude ritual, and maybe, cutting one toxic tie or belief cold. And that could be about, you are what you do, or something connected to your career, or something kind of connected to the way that you think. It's more about letting go of that kind of more Capricorn of the 12th, pessimistic, rigid kind of mindset. And I think it's about like finding ways to ritualize doing that and releasing it. So cord cutting, right? Writing things down, burning it, burning incense, burning things, smudging things can be really good. And obviously we do sometimes deal with some hidden enemies there. So some hidden enemies at work and communications and stuff can kind of rise up, or some difficult communications with siblings can happen here as well. But if you keep your bedroom kind of like in a state of like a Zen den, it's going to really help you, I think, have, better rest and also better clarity, so you can figure out where you're going at the beginning of next year. All right, so good luck with that. And last but not least, we have our Pisces and Pisces risings. What's up, Pisces? You guys are going to be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Capricorn. It'll be transiting through your natal 11th house of friends, networks, your goals, and your dreams, associations, parties, all that stuff. And Mars is tied to your 2nd house of money, finances, self-esteem, and resources, and the 9th house of education, travel, and your belief system. So truth be told, pretty active social season, I think, for like the next month or so for you guys. Mars going through the 11th house is definitely a lot of spending time and money and resources, either on travel to go and see people, or on connections and collaborations, gifts, celebrations, and seeing people you haven't seen in a minute. I think that this is also great because you can find that shared resources can definitely kind of come up here. And it's also going to be about maybe taking creative risks with other people. Maybe it means that, you're investing time in the people who you feel like are going to be good for you to be around, because they're going to be role models, or they're going to be inspiring you to want to be more productive and more successful, Capricorn. It's really strong for professional networking. So you may have to kind of get out of your comfort zone, or some of you guys might be kind of connecting with like alumni because of the ties to the 9th of people you went to school with, or maybe you're going and connecting with old professors or old counselors and stuff, because it can be really helpful for making some moves with your job. But you're also going to be treating your friends and social circle like it's a job as well. And so you might feel like you're having to invest either time or money into connecting with some people and celebrating things. What I want you guys to watch for is that someone may invest money or faith in your vision. And these sextiles to Saturn and Neptune in your sign obviously are very strong, because you might be pitching your ideas to other people and they'll go, oh, I love that, or I want to help you with that, or I believe in that. And it's going to feel very magical for you. And it might mean that it's also a time where, you take a risk and it really reignites some kind of like community, and you feel like you're building future with people who are going to help you, come into the person that you're becoming. So post the wild idea, right? Like rally the tribe during these transits. Let other people potentially fund your dreams, because if you talk about it, or if you're crowdfunding, you might find that people want to help you make that a reality. Pisces, I hope that that's helpful for you guys. Definitely let me know what happens. And to everyone who watches this video, I think that this is like a 6-week challenge. So I think that really it's going to be about forging something new. And we're either going to be the hammer or we're going to be the sword on this one. We want to choose wisely, and we want to really focus on some of the goodies that can be coming up at the beginning of January when we see that triple conjunction. So drop your rising sign. I'd love to hear what you guys are experiencing with these transits this week. Tell me what mountain you guys are moving. I would love to hear a little bit about what your plan is for the next 6 weeks to really knock this one out of the park. And I hope you guys like this video. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Sharing is caring. Like this, subscribe, and help the channel grow. I'm wishing you guys a beautiful week, and I will see you back here on Tuesday. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.